This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by trainer Tony Sims over Zoom. Tony, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Happy New Year. Hope you've had an enjoyable one, a good Christmas. How are you? How was the festive period?
Yeah, it was good. I worked all the way through it, and it was sparring Christmas Day. Um, yeah, worked all day, Boxing Day. Just worked all the way through really, because as you know, I've got early dates got fights in January and early Feb, so I was busy really through Christmas.
It is a busy period for you, Tony. Obviously, you got two massive fights at the end of this month. Sorry, end of and beginning of next month. To start off with John Ryder, as I caught up with him earlier, he seems to be in very confident mood heading into this Jaime Munguia fight. He's confident he can exploit some of the weaknesses of Jaime Munguia. For yourself, Tony, what do you see in Munguia that you feel that John can take advantage of?
Yeah, Munguia's a good fighter. He's a Mexican fighter. He's unbeaten. I think he's like 42-0 or something, and obviously he's a former world champion at 154. He's moving up to 168 really for the first time. He boxed obviously Derevyanchenko at 168, but we know that Derevyanchenko ain't really a 168 fighter, and so he's fighting up at 168 for the first time against a proper super middle in John Ryder, who's immensely strong at that weight. And yeah, John feels like Meninga ain't really boxed anybody of note or of anyone of great experience. So apart from obviously Liam Smith at 154, so John fancies the fight, and obviously John's going into his backyard in Phoenix and onto a Golden Boy show, so obviously the odds are stacked against him. But John's in getting himself in great condition physically, and he's always mentally switched on. So he's confident of winning the fight.
Just picking that one back up there, Tony, we're just adjusting a couple of things. Just with John traveling out there, what when you look at this fight, how much pressure is there on John's shoulders? Because you'd like to think, especially towards the back end of his career, he's earned enough money to be secure outside of boxing now. But if he still has those ambitions of challenging for world honors, of becoming a world champion, how much pressure is there to really take this fight, the ball by the horns, as it were, win this fight so that he can continue to strive towards that? Because if he doesn't, it might be a very long road back.
Yeah, as you say, he's had a long and great career, and he's ended up financially okay at the end of his career. And I think that the pressure would be more on Munguia to win the fight. Obviously, Golden Boy is trying to line him up as a contender for Canelo in his next fight in May. So there's a lot of talk about Meninga getting that fight, and that's putting pressure on him. And as I say, he ain't really campaigned at 168 before. He's obviously campaigning at this weight because he's hoping to get the Canelo fight. So I know he rehydrated. Sorry, I know he rehydrated. I know he rehydrated on his last fight at 168 to something like one. Was it 185? I heard, or something in the 180s. So he's obviously he's obviously quite big on the weight, but he's sold because he's been campaigning at middleweight the whole time. So we'll see when we get over there. But John's pretty confident of winning this fight. And as you say, like if he loses the fight, it's a long road back. And will he want to do? Will he want to campaign on that road back? It just depends on how the fight goes, really.
One final thing around John and obviously this fight. Previously, we saw him travel up to Liverpool to face Callum Smith. Didn't get the rub of the green with the judges on that occasion. Before he fought Canelo, there was all the talk of if he was to be successful, maybe he'd have to stop him. Obviously, the fight didn't plan out like that in the end. But looking into this one now, do you have any concerns over any judging?
Yeah, there's always like you've always got to worry about the judging, ain't there? When you're going abroad and you're going into someone's hometown. But the thing is, when it's on it's going to be on live TV, showing around the world. Or obviously we've seen some bad decisions, but sometimes it's really hard, you know what I mean, to keep doing them. And we'll just see anyway. You know, I've got confidence in judging, and we'll just see on the night anyway.
Obviously, the week after that, we see the return of young Conor-Benn. Just with Conor, before we come on to the Peter Dobson fight, the Eubank Jr. fight's obviously a big talking point. It fell through now. Speaking with Eddie, speaking with Frank, it's down to Junior's demands as to why that fight fell through. Can you just give me a bit more information and how frustrated you guys are that we won't see Conor and Junior face off next?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously Eddie and Frank was more involved in the negotiations. The negotiations went on for quite a long while, and we thought the fight was done at one time, but for reasons only known to Chris Eubank Jr., he just didn't want to do the fight at this present time. Whether he wants to do the fight at a later date, I don't know, but he just never got it, you know, never got over the line. And you know, we didn't want to keep really waiting. We knew there was a date there of February the 3rd to fight, so we didn't really want to keep waiting around to see whether Eubank's going to sign or he ain't going to sign. So we just kind of moved straight on to the Las Vegas fight.
I know, speaking with Eddie and Frank, I was always confident that a deal could be agreed. From what was ever told back to you, where did you stand on the fight? Did you believe, obviously up until it was pulled, that there was an air of confidence, that there was a belief we would see Conor and Junior square off next, or was you ever reserved about the fight?
I was always a little bit reserved, to be honest, Andy, you know, and obviously obviously everyone knows we were close to fighting him before, like over a year ago, and that was really hard work doing the negotiations then. So, you know, he's obviously got his own reasons for not signing. I don't know what they are, but there was a lot more money on the table this time, and you know, I don't really know why he's turned the fight down. But anyway, we just got to move on and do our own thing, you know. And we're doing the fight in Vegas against Peter Dobson, and you just got to get on with your own career and do your own thing.
Peter Dobson, what are you expecting from this fight? What challenges does he bring to Conor?
Well, he's unbeaten in 16 fights. When you're fighting an unbeaten fighter, you know, they're always confident because obviously they've never been beat. And, you know, we're going over to the States where he's from. So, you know, it's always tough over there. And, but it's a great chance for Conor to showcase his skills in front of a Las Vegas audience. He's always wanted to fight in Vegas, and you know, it's just great to be topping the bill there and fighting an American, really. And you know, I believe that Conor's got the ability to beat Dobson and just move on to, you know, he's ranked number 5th by the WBC now, so he'll just be pushing more on the 147 route to get a world title shot now.
Obviously, Tony, with the fight when it was announced, there were critiques. You've gone from potential Eubank Jr. fight to then, you know, all the mentions of a potential Mario Barrios fight, amongst other names being mentioned. Peter Dobson, bit more of an unknown quantity to most over here. With that in mind, when Conor does step between the ropes and faces him, how much pressure is there on him to do a bit of a job to really make it look like it was not, I don't want to say a mismatch, but to make it show that there was levels between them and he's ready then for a big fight beyond February 3rd?
Yeah, well, we would have loved to do the Mario Barrios fight or any of them other big fights, Keith Thurman. But you know, they was asked to fight Conor-Benn, but you know, I think time was running out, and obviously Peter Dobson, you know, he took the fight, and you know, as you say, like Conor, you know, Conor needs to showcase his skills out there and show what he's all about. And like, he had a tough fight in September against the Mexican, and that's put him in good stead for this fight. So you know, I'm sure that he'll go out and look good.
Tony, you mentioned the Barrioses, the Thurmans of the world. Eddie has said that in April time, that's the plan to get Conor back out again, provided February goes to plan. With that in mind, Are you confident he can be one of those names, that one of those guys will sign on the dotted line, as it were, to face Conor next?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that Eddie will make one of them fights. You know, money talks at the end of the day, and you know, I'm sure one of the big fights can be made for him. Um, but I'll leave all that to the promoters anyway, because that's their job to do, and it's my job to train him, and their job to put the fights together.
So we know he's got his ongoing case with the board as well, Tony. A lot of talk about taking place this month, or things start to progress around that. When should we expect to hear more news on that front? Are you confident we see Conor back boxing under a British Boxing Board of Control license this year at some point?
Yeah, I think the board's appeal will be coming up fairly soon. Yeah, I think we're confident about him reboxing in the UK again, and you know, it's just you know, another barrier that he's got to get out of the way. But you know, I'll be pleased when it's over and he's back licensed and fighting in the UK again.
And then just away from the gym, just a couple of the topics to touch on. Just before Christmas, we saw Anthony Joshua overcome Otto Wallin in quite a dominant fashion and performance. He received a lot of praise. What was your thoughts on his performance and his win?
Yeah, I thought he'd done great, you know, and you know, I messaged him, and you know, I said I was well pleased for him. He looked like the Joshua of old. He come out confident on the front foot and done what he had to do. And Wallin was one of them people that no one really wanted to fight. He had a good fight with Fury. He's awkward southpaw. I know I Wallin pretty well as well personally, and he always keeps himself in good condition. But Joshua put the performance in what we all know he's capable of, and he just got in there and blasted him out and took no prisoners, and he looked really good. I was pleased for him.
There's obviously talk of what happens next for him. Speaking to Otto Wallin just before Christmas, he said that maybe his mind's changed as to how a fight between AJ and Fury could play out. And obviously, you know, you've got Fury-Usyk, AJ's going to have another fight prior to any potential matchup there. But if this is, say, a return to an Anthony Joshua of old, as you've said, how do you think that version can fare against Tyson Fury?
Well, I've always thought, even in the early days, that you know, Joshua has got the style to beat Fury because, listen, he's as big as him, so you can't show him around. He punches hard, and his boxing ability is good. Obviously, Fury's a very, very difficult man to beat. He's never been beat, and they say you're only as good as your last fight. And obviously, Fury didn't look very good in his fight against Ngannou, and Joshua looked really good against Wallin. But you know, if you go before that, and then when we was watching Fury beat Wilder, and then you know Joshua was losing to like Ruiz and that, you know, and so you're just as good as your last fight. And if Fury goes and beats Usyk convincingly, what Joshua couldn't do, and then people will start favouring Fury to beat Joshua. So it's all after your last fight, and you know I'm the same as everyone else. I'm looking at Joshua now, you know, thinking on his last performance, on the Fury's last performance, that Joshua would be the big favourite. But things change all the time in boxing, and that's the thing about boxing. You never really 100% know who's going to win, who's going to win the fight, and that's why everyone tunes into it, especially heavyweight boxing, because it only takes one punch and the fight's over. I mean, who would have thought? No one in their right minds would have thought Ngannou would have put that kind of performance up against Fury, who stopped Wilder. You know, you just wouldn't have thought that would have happened. But you never know in boxing. You know, it's one of them sports that you never know what's going to happen.
Final one, Tony, as we stick to the theme of Tyson Fury on that Alexander Usyk bout, and as you mentioned, the Ngannou performance since then, since we saw what happened in that fight, has your mind altered at all as to how you think the undisputed bout between Tyson and Alexander will play out come February?
Well, we see Usyk beat Joshua, and he looked unbeatable. then we see Usyk against Dubois, and he looked really beatable against someone who you would have thought, you know, is not as good as Joshua. So I think personally, if Fury switched on in this fight and he's done the right amount of work and training and sparring, which he probably has, because he's probably shook him up that last fight. I think he will beat Usyk, and I think he'll be too big for him, and he'll be hitting him at range. And I don't think Usyk will get a lot off on him, to be truthful with you. But that's obviously a switched on Fury. The Fury we know that, you know, beat everyone in the past, so we have to wait on the night. But it's not a definite. And Usyk's a very smart fighter. He's very awkward, but I fancy Fury to win the fight.
All right, Tony, it's getting a little late now, so I'm going to leave you to enjoy what's remaining for your evening and your night ahead. Thank you for speaking to me. I'm sure I'll catch up with you soon, and good luck, obviously, with your early travels out to America and that stint, which I know you're very much looking forward to.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate that, mate, and I'll speak to you soon.